coming up, we have a conversation with Goel from Volkswagen, Executive VP for Service Parts and Logistics, and we'll be having a conversation talking about leadership. It's over the past 18 months, leadership skills within the automotive sector have been tested like never before. A perfect storm of industry-wide transformation and rival levels of supply chain disruption, and the global pandemic has required automotive leaders and managers and mentors to step up. So today, I'm delighted to be joined by Goel, and we're going to have a little conversation about some of the leadership challenges and battles that Anu's had to go through. So, Anu, great to have you here this afternoon. Thanks for joining us virtually.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
How's that? I know you're here. You're not too far from us, Anu, but we can sense your presence. I know you couldn't be here physically.
And I apologize for that, right? For the reasons we talked about. But thank you for having me virtually.
No, we're pleased to have you here. I know, as we spoke about, Anu, we wanted to have a conversation and talk about some of the leadership challenges, issues that we've been through. It's obviously been a challenging time for all leaders and managers, and of course everybody in this time. And I guess we wanted to start up and talk about what are the top 3 or 4 traits and methods and priorities that you've employed to manage your business and the teams. What are those things that you've had to do?
All right. Well, I'll just tell you. Let's wind the clock back 17 months to last March, and I think it was 13th or 14th of March when we got word to leave the building, and they gave us 45 minutes to go. So I pulled the team together. And everyone expected to be back right in a couple days or whatever. I remember telling everybody when they left, plan for 2 weeks, right? It tells you how prescient I am, right? We're 17 plus months beyond, right? So obviously missed that one, but some of the things that we did, and I'll just try to lay it out into 4 buckets. First, we wanted to ensure the health and safety of our employees and their loved ones, right? First and foremost, in a pandemic, safety and health of our employees and their loved ones. And, that means, right, assuring people that as best we could, that they would be employed, that they would have a paycheck, right? Because people were worried about mortgages and, right, groceries and the like. We want to ensure that they felt comfortable that they had health care, right? In case anything happens, right? Don't want it to happen, knock on wood, but if anything does, that you're not left high and dry. If you can handle those things, you can keep their minds and hearts engaged with what we're going to be asking them or what we are asking them to do, right? So that was first and foremost. Second, from a business perspective, right? We needed to ensure liquidity for the company, right? And Volkswagen Group, we've always had the benefit of the mothership in Germany, right? But global pandemic, they were in no position to help us as well. So US, 10% of the global volume, right? Time to step up, grow up, right? Fend for yourself. So ensure liquidity. Third, as it progressed, right, as we went from March, April, May, and then all of a sudden, now we're into, you get the essential services going, right? So my areas of the business, parts and vehicle logistics, right? So service parts and delivering cars to customers, which we'll get to in a second. Production impacts. We needed to figure out how to shut down operations safely, right? Automotive companies, production plants are meant to run. Right? So shutting them down, right, want to do that safely. And it's not like shutting down for 2 weeks for vacation, because now we're shutting down in the middle of a pandemic, right? And developing the protocols for people to return. And that was the fourth element. When we restart, how do you restart or resume operations safely? Right. So, you get this, everyone had their safety protocol plans. And I've seen plans that were 100-point plan and 170-point plan, right? Every little type of detail worked out, but you need to go beyond the basics to answer employees' questions, because everyone was concerned about their health and safety, and what they would, if they did come into work, right, like our essential workers did, and have been since day one. I saw videos of people going back to their garages after their shifts and changing clothes and disinfecting themselves in the garage before they walked into their homes, so that they wouldn't bring anything that they exposed themselves to in our facilities back home, right? So those were the types of things that we really did, right? Health and safety first, ensure liquidity, shut down operations, resume operations, right? That was the focus. And then, as we go on with how we managed it, we were having daily leadership calls every morning at 9 o'clock. And we set ourselves daily tasks and objectives, right? Leadership teams typically set, monthly, quarterly, like 12-month out visions and goals. We got down to a day by day, what has to happen later this morning and this afternoon, who's got those responsibilities, and then come back and report on the next day. And we're going to take this situation, day at a time. And we took that literally. And then the last element of that is make sure our teams know what we're doing and why we're doing it, right? And it's just the leadership room, right? So it starts off with those four principles, and then I can't overemphasize, and everyone uses this word communication. You can't over communicate, not in a situation like this, right? So that's how we approached the first 4 to 5 months of the pandemic. And as you go through it, then you start changing that, because you've now got the new normal, right? This is, for the foreseeable future, how we're going to be working. So let's get into a cadence. Right, so sorry for the long-winded response, but that was how we approached the immediate and the first 4 or 5 months of the pandemic.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And I think, as you said, communication is the key to all of that, and just taking that to another level to ensure that everybody's informed. I think, while you're busy focusing on your teams and your wider business and all those elements that are of course important, what did you learn about yourself during that time as well, right?
I mean, it's a good question. This is in no particular order. I always felt I trusted people and teams. You have to take trust to another level, because they're not with you in the office, and you're not visiting them in plants, depots, ports, offices around the country. So trust has to be there, right? I believe I got better at delegation, right? Tough for some leaders to give up, right? You had to learn to delegate, and it gets along with the trust. I also learned more about people's families, right? Because as you check in with them, I started checking in with people more than just, one-on-one in the office to catch up on what's going on in Mark Ilianich's area with parts logistics, vehicle logistics, or with Rachel Zaluzik and CRM, right? Steve Rufo, right? The entire team. You sit down, you talk about the business. We started checking in on each other and our families and loved ones, because we had people that had family members impacted by the pandemic, right? By the virus, other health-related issues. And you found yourself, because the concept of the normal workday disappeared. And I was having chats at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night with team members, just checking in to see how they're doing. And right, so that's what I learned, right? I learned, and I always thought I was okay at it, right? But I had to be better at it. And you learn, right? Some people don't want to talk about it, don't want to open up, but we had people lose loved ones, right? And it's not like you can be there to, hug them in person, right? I remember stories of people losing loved ones and looking for a funeral home, right? And right, some are closed. We had people going 5, 6, 7 hours away to be able to have the services, and then the services were without loved ones. It's just you couldn't even fathom, right? And everyone in the audience, right, and listening has gone through some element of this, but a personal level. But when I also learned patience. You typically do a conference call with someone, and if you hear a dog bark in the background, if you hear children in the background, or if they're outside, you hear the wind noise, you're going, what the hell, right? We're supposed to be at work. What's going on here? You learn that that's life, right? We've got people that are in 1, 2-bedroom apartments or places where they were. They've got us homeschool their children, right, virtually. And I had people that were sitting in their cars taking conference calls because it was the only place that they could get quiet time, right? So I learned patience. It actually allowed you to learn more about their families, right? It was nice to hear Mark's daughter in the background, right? That was kind of cool, right? Because to her, daddy's home, and she wants to play. She wants to talk to him, right? That's okay. I mean, so it takes a little while. It took me a couple months, or maybe more than a couple months, to get over that, right? Or the annoyance of that disruption, of a disruption on a call. It also took me a little while to get over the fact that you got people that are at cottages sitting outside on the beach taking a call, right? That to me was a learning as well. But, the work's getting done. Business is moving forward. We're learning new ways of doing things. You don't have to be sitting in the office or on a plane to do that. Right, so those are some of the things I learned about me personally and about the team.
Yeah, I think equally so that human element is so important, right? Because we sometimes forget about that extended lives, because ultimately you've moved from kind of working in this corporate office environment to now being in people's homes, right? Where you have to then for us working from home, you have to make that separation between work and home, but everything interacts. We got particularly familiar with my colleague Chris, his cat that kept appearing every call, which so yeah.
I mean, for the record, I'm not a cat lover, so Chris and I would not get along here.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about people know when you are genuine and sincere, right? We always say that. And if someone asked how you or your family are doing, you can tell if they're sincere or not. I am very fortunate to work for the boss that I do, right? Scott Keogh, our CEO. He just called to check up, right? Typically when Scott calls, you drop everything, you answer the phone, right? And you handle whatever needs to be handled. There's times you call and he goes, no business, I just want to see how you're doing. My wife had been, she got stuck, as you know, stranded in India last year during the pandemic, right? She was back visiting her family. 3-week trip, and then it took me 9 weeks to get her out on a State Department evacuation flight. He was genuinely interested and offered up his assistance to help get her out of India and back home. Right? VW has planes that were in Mumbai that were making trips to Germany, and I knew we can get her a seat. Right? Let me know. Right? Just the fact that he called and he cared and he followed her situation, right? Because that's stressful, right? I mean, you know what life is like in India. Something happens there. You got 3 million people living in a 5-square-mile block in Mumbai. That virus is going to spread, right? And we didn't know as much as we know now. And I'm sitting out here at 2 a.m. talking to the State Department in India, trying to get her home. So you can tell when someone's genuine and sincere. And if you get that, you got 100% loyalty and buy-in to whatever we have to do.
Yeah, I agree. And equally so, I guess that brings me on to my next question in terms of how you then, kept your managers motivated, inspired, and empowered to drive the change required to to maintain that positive culture, but also to deal with all of the anomalies that they were having to deal with as well, right? And all those challenges in operations. So,
well, yeah, I mean that's an interesting question. I could first and foremost say it's communication, right? Help them understand what's going on at the higher level, because everyone's worried, are we a viable business going forward, right? Are we going to abandon the U.S. market? Are we going to declare bankruptcy, right? Am I going to have a job, right? Do I update my resume? Where do I look? All those types of things, right? So communicate what the plan is. Share numbers with them that in the past we might not have done. So they got a little bit of a peek under the hood of what was going on. Which, I mean, we're usually pretty good at sharing stuff. And I think we went even further beyond that, right? So that's communication. Second is as we talked about the liquidity and the shutdown of operations and resumption, but specifically liquidity. On the vehicle logistics side of the business, getting cars there to dealers was our lifeblood cash flow for the company. Right? Even more so important than pre-pandemic. Every vehicle sold to a dealer, right, that they could sell on, right, wholesale to a dealer was cash flow to keep us liquid. Right? So the importance of that grew. Parts logistics, big deal for, revenue and profit of a company. Right? So getting parts and keeping them moving at a high level was key to the vehicles bringing the cash flow, parts was bringing in the profit, right? So that was our, I would say visibility, exposure, right? The old term, there's a difference between visibility and exposure. One's good, one's not so good. Our role was elevated, right? It became front stage in the center of every daily call, right? How are we doing? What's going on? What help do you need? Right? Where are the bottlenecks? That kind of stuff. So when the team learned, right, where the liquidity of the company was and our role in the liquidity, right, and profitability of the company, they got it. And, right, and I don't know what the right way to say it is, but because I'm lucky to work with a very good group of professionals that know what they're doing and don't need a cheerleader for a boss. They're self-motivated and they'll go. They just need someone that'll keep them looped in, keep the BS off of them so that they can do their jobs and help get them the resources they need to do their jobs, right? So it allowed us to do that.
Yeah. And in terms of the advice, all that, how they manage their teams as well, right? Because, of course, you have line managers and they have managers as well, right? So, and clearly they're doing the same, employing the same tactics and doing the same things that you're doing with their teams. And of course, they've got various other challenges amongst those teams as well, right? So, and of course, being able to, just to give you an example, of course, for us as a business as well, we had to start to do things differently, learn new skills, and now you're kind of talking about a different way of innovating, right? And forcing that innovation where you're not in a physical environment to do that, and you're doing things, virtually. How did you find that process and adapt to that?
Another interesting question. I guess here's what I tell you. We had the leadership meetings at 9 a.m. Typically ran 45 minutes. 10 o'clock, I had a meeting with my team every day. They heard 15 minutes later what we just talked about as leadership team, because as I said, they were daily goals, right? So here's our role for today. This is what we got to go do, right? And then they communicated that with their teams shortly thereafter. So this, typically news takes a week, a month, whatever to flow through an organization, was flowing through within 35, 40 minutes, right? So there was a fairly quick dissemination of information. Two, I told you I learned about trust, patience, etc. What we talk to our teams about is you need to understand everyone's an individual and everyone's going through things differently as well. I read a great article a while back that I've shared with the team that said, what you need to remember is everyone's lives and priorities have changed over the last, at the time it was 14 months of the pandemic. The people that you are now working with or that will be coming back to work when you do open the doors are not going to be the same people that you remember when they left. Right? So your way of managing and leading those people has to change. Right? So we were trying to make them cognizant of that. Little things like last Thanksgiving and Christmas, people weren't able to spend time with their families. Right? You weren't able to travel, right? Gathering restrictions, people were afraid. Holidays can be dark times, right? So how to watch for people that are struggling. So if you're on a conference call, you're not visually seeing anybody, fine. If you get someone that's usually outspoken, but they're not saying something on the call, you may go, okay, good, what's going on and how do you engage them? But if you get someone that's quiet and not engaging, how do you know, right, that they're doing okay? So we work to help our leaders understand, right, and things to watch for, and then resources that we had to help team members in that regards, right? Because once again, we're trying to take care of their physical, mental, emotional health, right? Not that we can do everything, but you have to develop a sense, a radar, a feeling that is a muscle that no one, right, usually or typically had to exercise. So how do you do that, right? So the business, you can talk about innovation and how we, every day you turn around, right? I was just waiting for locusts to come out of the field, right? Because every day was something else. Chip shortage. We got a fire at a chip plant in Japan. We got an ice storm in Texas, right? We got raw material shortages, right? We got building shortages. We've got a case of COVID in this facility, and back then it was shut the place down for 10 days, right? First 14, then 10, then 48 hours, then 24 hours, right? Fumigate it, and then get everybody back in the building, right? So those things, right? You can talk about innovation or how you deal with them. Yeah, okay, right? That's business. The trick is keeping the hearts and minds of your people, right? Because everyone's seeing it now. Labor's tight. Job market's pretty good. People are importance of supply chain has increased. People have more options for jobs than they've ever had before, whether they know it or not. And as people's lives have changed, and if you say, I'm going to be a company that's going to have some level of people back in the office, and some people that doesn't fit their new life, right? New priorities, you're going to have resignations. So you got to have people whose hearts and minds are in what you do, and believe what you do, and that's the trick. That's all right. That's the special sauce you got to figure out.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we've got about a few minutes left, so I know you're sticking around for the next session as well. So let me finish with a final question for you, and just ask your advice, really. What advice would you offer as we continue to navigate these difficult times, operationally and professionally? You talked about, all those other challenges, the chip shortages, the issues around weather, capacity, all those challenges that we've been talking about for the last 2 days, right? I mean, they're set to kind of continue, but there's, along with it comes a transformation within the industry as well, the move to kind of electric vehicles, that change, of course, changing dynamics in terms of mobility and how companies evolve in that process as well. So, what advice would you give to fellow leaders and people looking to come up and be leaders as well, right? What advice would you give to them?
The quick tongue-in-cheek one is find another line of work. Right? And people say things, right? There's more change coming in this industry in the next 3 to 5 years than in the past 20 to 30 years, right? I've been doing this for over 30 years. I'm a dinosaur in the business, trying to adapt to this environment. The constants are Normal will not return pre-pandemic, right? Will not. If someone thinks it's going to go back to the way it was in January, February of 19, right? Nope, 20, not going to happen, right? The business has changed. Customers' expectations and perceptions have changed. It's accelerated our digitalization efforts, right? With contactless service, contactless payment, right? Virtual visits, right? All, service at home, all those types of things are there. What the advice I'd be given that I would give people is you gotta figure out how to connect with your team, right? On a level that you never would have thought, right? You got to learn how to manage through individual exceptions. There's no company policy that's going to address 12,000 employees around the U.S. You're going to have 12,000 different situations, right? So if someone needs an exception or has a family situation, how do you handle that, right? Because it's great to say there's the company's Bible and policy manual, and what you're asking for is not possible, so be it. Oh, okay, right? If you want to go with that, fine. 6,000 people are going to say okay. 6 are going to say, yep, that doesn't work for me, and you're going to accelerate your resignations, right? And departures. So you got to figure out how to deal with that. So connect with people, do that, and you just got to understand that every day is going to be a different challenge. And the measure is how fast you adapt instead of, excuse the language, bitching about it, right? Figure it out, right? We need people that are going to figure it out, right? Instead of dumping a problem somewhere or ignoring a problem, each one of these things is going to take an adult, right, to answer. I mean, I've seen most things happen during my career, right? A lot of the stuff, obviously not. And as I'm closer toward the finish line, I don't get worked up about stuff anymore, right? It's a situation. What are the alternatives? What's the recommendation? Let's go, right? In the past, I'd have the butterflies in the stomach and the ulcers and the heartache, and I would take the problems home and try not to let it, right, impact any discussions with my wife. Now she's home watching me go through this, and her line to me is, "They pay you to do this?" Right? So you just got to figure it out. It's going to happen, right? And it's going to be stuff that you haven't seen before or anybody has seen before. The trick is, can you anticipate it, right? And I haven't figured that out yet, because the stuff we're seeing isn't stuff that I've ever seen. It's random patterns, right? Had an issue today with a vessel that arrived in Jacksonville that just, wow, okay, right? Won't get into it here, but whoa, holy cow, that's a new one. Right? I have no idea, right? What do you guys, right? So you get the experts in the room and you figure it out. But yeah, now people talk about the new normal, right? And I get tired of that term. It's, every day is going to be something that you haven't seen before. Take it as a learning opportunity, right? Yeah. If not, you're going to drive yourself nuts, right? It's a challenge. It's, make it fun, right? Yeah. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's where I'd be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think for me, one of the things is also, fail as well. Like, try things, fail, learn, adapt.
Yeah, and how quickly do you notice it's not working, and then what do you do? Yeah. Right? I mean, so yeah, you're right. It's okay to fail, right? Don't make the same mistake twice, right? It's another learning I had from an old boss at the Blue Oval. It's okay to fail. Don't make the same mistake twice. The true measure is how fast do you change course?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? Yeah, I agree completely. It's always a pleasure speaking with you, Anu, and I know we're coming up on time. So thank you very much, and thanks, Anu. Great.